The Big WECK presents Buffalo on the Rise, sponsored by Dr. Kaplansky Dental Implants. Get new permanent teeth in 24 hours with our exclusive Teeth Now process. Welcome to the television show devoted to local business, Buffalo on the Rise, with your host, Joe Chili. There's an entrepreneurial spirit in Western New York that's putting our area on the cusp of greatness. Each week, Buffalo on the Rise features local business leaders and decision makers who are shaping our future. If it's about local business, we'll talk about it right here, right now, during Buffalo on the Rise.
I'm Joe Chili. On this edition of the Big WECK's Buffalo on the Rise, I'll introduce you to some interesting people from hometown businesses with interesting stories to tell. Like Ann Marie Klosko from Elder Transition Consulting to answer all your questions about downsizing as we get older. Then Keyla Fisk from the VA has some important information on suicide prevention as it pertains to veterans. And Nathan Vitacco from Reimer Heating and Cooling helps keep our homes comfortable during any season. All on this edition of the Big WECK's Buffalo on the Rise. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Joe Chili. Mornings from 7 to 9 on Buffalo's oldie station, the Big WECK. Joining us on the Big WECK's Buffalo on the Rise today is Ann Marie Klosko, who's the owner of Elder Transition Consulting. How are you?
Great. How are you, Joe?
I'm good. You know, so when I first heard the name of your group, I'm thinking, how are you consulting elders? But then when I read more into it, and you and I have talked on a number of occasions, I find out the fact that it's kind of like downsizing or smart sizing thing, an individual's home. Got to give you credit. I would not want to do it. You're working with not just the client sometimes, right? But the entire family. So you're going through this whole thing. What do you think is the some of the most successful things that you've done when you're downsizing, you're getting ready for somebody to move into smaller quarters?
I feel like when we have a good working relationship now with just the client and the family, things seem to go much smoother. And when I say the client and the family, it's really allowing us to be able to do our job in terms of working with the client to help them downsize and pack and unpack, but then allowing the children to really pay attention to their parents, basically, meaning like they're focusing more on their well-being and getting their finances in order and maybe coordinating with the community. So while we're trying to kind of help them with the downsizing process, they can focus more on the matters with the parents. So we're kind of taking the load off the children versus the client sometimes. So it works out well.
So what kind of prep time? I mean, this sounds kind of weird, but I mean, you've got to think there are things, it's not just like what might be in this individual room, in this room. It might be all the things that are in the basement or the things that are packed in the garage, because God knows nobody parks their car in the garage anymore. They've got all the other particulars in there. But so how long before an actual transition should people contact you?
I think at least a year, like 6 months to a year is probably a good amount. And again, it really depends on the amount of belongings the people have in their home. But I would say even a year in advance is probably not a bad thing, because then at least they know that they're starting to think about the process. And they could be doing some downsizing themselves. Some of our clients, their children have helped them with it. Sometimes we help along with the children. It just really depends. But really giving yourself permission to, have that time and luxury to be able to start really going through your belongings. Because when you move from a 2,000 square foot home down to a 750 square foot apartment, you can't take everything. So you really have to be very prescriptive about what you're taking. And I think the more time you give yourself, the better it's going to allow you to make better decisions.
And you can't, someone can't just say, oh, I'm just going to leave my husband behind.
No, you can't do that.
Well, one of the things people may not think about, I mean, we're thinking about downsizing, but you also think about the process of moving too. Do you help people with movers?
We do. We actually work with a local mover that we pretty much use them exclusively unless the client's already picked a mover. But we always try to tell our clients, if you know you have a date of a move or a rough date, give the mover a call at least 6 weeks in advance, because even if they you don't have an exact date, they will put you on their schedule. So that's usually the first thing I tell our clients, or I ask them, do you have a mover? If they don't have a mover, I recommend the one that we use. If they have one, I always say, please contact them as soon as possible.
Do people ever say to you, in the event, you say, well, you can't take this, you can't take this, you can't take this. Do they ever say to you, where do those things go if I can't take them?
Yes, they do.
Really?
They do, but what we try to do is make sure that anything that is in their house that we can donate that's given to a good charity, such as like Stitch Buffalo, Journey's End, anything in the house that we can repurpose, we always try to make sure that it gets another home and another life. But there's things in houses that really just might need to go for a donation. A lot of times there's trash in the house, and old electronics and recycling, things that might need to be recycled. We work with local organizations that will come in and kind of take out bigger donations, take out old, electronic recycling, chemical recycling, and properly dispose of them.
What do you think are the hardest moves? Is it when you have siblings maybe that live out of town or out of state?
I would say the hardest moves, that would probably be a true assessment. I mean, I think, again, if we can keep the lines of communication open with the family that's out of town, even if there's local family that needs to be communicated, we try to make sure that everybody's involved in the process, and thank God for technology now, because we can FaceTime, we can text, we can send pictures, we can call them, we can do conference calls, whatever we need to make sure the family is very well aware of what we're actually doing in the home, because we are in people's personal space. I just want to make sure that they trust that what we're doing and that they're fully updated on what we're trying to do to help their parents get ready for the move.
And some parents may be, and we only have probably about a minute and a half left, incapacitated in some way. Maybe they have dementia, and this is very stressful and very confusing for them, and you have to deal with that as well, right?
We do. We have clients that we work with that have early onset dementia, and what we've learned working with people with that terrible disease, because it's awful. What we try to do is really focus our energy, like working one-on-one with them, not creating a lot of distraction, putting a list together of things that we're going to focus on each and every day that we work with them, so that we're really giving them one-on-one attention, and that we've got a plan in place to address everything we need to get done prior to their move.
Now, Ann Marie Klosko, you gave us a great description. We really appreciate that. For more information and answers to your questions, contact Elder Transition Consultants by calling 716-440-0933 or go to eldertransitionconsulting.com. Sponsorship and promotional consideration for the preceding segment was provided by Elder Transition Consultants, and you can join me weekday morning 7 to 9 a.m. on the Big WECK. Hi, I'm Joe Chili. Mornings from 7 to 9 on Buffalo's oldie station, the Big WECK. Joining me on the Big WECK's Buffalo on the Rise today is Keyla Fisk, who is the Suicide Prevention Program Manager with the Veterans Administration. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And good for you to be here. This is a difficult topic. I think to talk about. When I looked at it and I said suicide, I'm like, but it's a very real concern, especially with veterans, right? And I would imagine that it spans decades. It might not just be, it could be Vietnam vets, it could be Afghanistan, it could be wherever it might be, right?
Yeah.
So what's the first step? What's the first step in the event people are watching today and they've had those thoughts? And as you and I talked about before we went on the air, it's natural for somebody at some point in time to think about something like this. What's their first step?
I think their first step is acknowledging that they're struggling and reaching out for help. And that can be any number of ways. It can be reaching out to your local crisis line. It can be reaching out to crisis services, calling 911. Just acknowledging that you're struggling and know that there are people who are available and who want to help you.
So what does your program actually do?
Sure. So the suicide prevention program at the VA is multifaceted. Our main goal is to reduce and eventually try to eliminate suicide. Our goal is to be there for people who are in crisis. So we're able to identify from a various number of factors people who are struggling. What we do is we follow them very closely. We offer them intensive crisis management. We ensure that they have appropriate follow-up. We're reaching out to their providers. We're at times reaching out to family members if they give us permission to do that, to make sure that their needs are being met and we are not allowing anybody to fall through the cracks. We do this in a multifaceted way. We have community engagement and partnership coordinators who work with the public to try to spread the word. We handle outreach events a lot of the time where we are just trying to demystify, destigmatize, and openly communicate about the risks that are inherent within not only the general population, but specifically the veteran population. They are a unique group of individuals. It is very much a niche organization, and our goal is to really be there to support them as much as we possibly can.
You know, Keyla, one of the things that I think it's hard for people to understand, and you know, I had a hard time with it too, except that I have friends that have gone through this. You go overseas or whatever, you're there for a couple of years in a combat situation or whatever. Then you come back home to your wife and family, and it's not a Hallmark moment. I mean, you know, you see some of these things where families get reunited, and sure, when the kids see dad again or mom again, they're all excited or whatever, but that's great for that moment. But getting reestablished in that family situation takes some work.
Absolutely. It's not as easy as flipping a switch where, you know, you're deployed and then you come home and everything is right back to normal. There is a process, an educational process for the veterans, for the families, but also an emotional process of realizing that you're not who you were before, you're not in the same place as you were before. And just because that is the case, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It's learning how to establish some new norms for yourself, but also looking at the resources that are available to you and to your family members to help you reestablish and reacclimate to being back in the civilian world.
Is this just for veterans? Is there ever a case where you deal with non-veterans?
Sure, absolutely. There are times when we have been notified of a veteran or somebody who might have served but doesn't necessarily have the veteran status who's struggling. That doesn't necessarily exclude them from care. We try to involve as many people as possible. We provide them with resources in the community, resources within the VA. We involve family members. We offer them support as well.
How can people get involved with the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always reach out to us at any point in time. I know that my contact information will be displayed at some point. But we are always looking for more opportunities, more outreach events where we can reach out to the general public, but also to veterans who may not be involved in the VA for care, or other individuals who are looking to partner with us and spread the word. We love to do outreach events to really get that information out there.
And I hate to ask this question, what about families that have been affected by suicide?
Yeah. So we do know that unfortunately suicides do happen. Part of our program is to provide some post-vention services. So there is a group of clinicians who get together. It is a multidisciplinary group where we look at who was involved with the veteran, who was involved with the veteran's family. What can we do to support them? What can we do to support these family members? Are we looking at providing resources in the community for them? Are we completing interviews with them after the event has occurred? We do try to remain involved as much as possible.
What about veterans that still have an interest when they come back in firearms? Yeah. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so a lot of times veterans will ask us about, you know, if I disclose that maybe I'm having some suicidal thoughts, does that mean that the VA is going to take away my firearms? The short answer is no. The VA does not have a stake in you having firearm access, and we support you having firearm access. What our goal is harm reduction, access and means reduction. So we will always provide you with gun locks for your firearms, because if you're struggling and you might have an uncomfortable thought or an intrusive thought that comes into your head, having an extra lock or an extra mechanism on your firearm might prevent you from doing something impulsive and harmful. So we really do focus on that. And it's not just firearms, it's also access to medications. If you are somebody who struggles with intrusive thoughts, maybe having a lockbox would be helpful, and we're happy to help you with that and get those for you.
Kayla, thank you. We really appreciate that. For more information about the VA of Western New York and their suicide prevention program, contact va.gov Western New York Healthcare or call 716-862-3124. Sponsorship and promotional consideration for the preceding segment was provided by VA of Western New York Healthcare. And don't forget to join me weekday mornings from 7 to 9 a.m. on the Big WECK. Hi, I'm Joe Chilling, weekday mornings from 7 to 9 on Buffalo's oldie station, the Big WECK. Joining us on the Big WECK's Buffalo on the Rise today is Nathan Vitacco, who is the Vice President of Operations for Reimer Home Services. Welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
I see the horn on your shirt. You know, I've got it in my head. You know, get you guys on the horn and get the work done. And I see the horns on the trucks going by.
Miss it.
I can't miss it. It's great. It's great. You know, one of the things I think, what it was, 1921 when you guys started.
That's correct.
That's amazing. Over 100 years, you've served Western New York homeowners with heating and cooling. And that was your focus, right? So yeah. How has your focus changed now?
Yes, yeah. So like you said, Reimer's been around for over 100 years. Reimer's been serving the Western New York community since 1921. Started at heating and cooling. About 15 years ago, we got into plumbing. And then a little less than 2 years ago, we got into electric. You know, HVAC, we're pretty experienced in HVAC. You know, our technicians can come out and service anything your furnace or AC has to offer. In the plumbing side, you know, we can service kitchen drains, toilets, your sump pump. We have a crew of excavators that can service any mainline blockage that you have sewer related. And our electrical team, very experienced. They can offer any services, whole home services, regarding your light fixtures, outlets, light switches. We'll definitely take a look at your panel. And so some things that we look at in your panel is, you know, if it's cloth wiring is a big thing. Federal Pacific breakers are actually, you know, they're not authorized anymore. If there's rust in your panel, and even worse if there's water in your panel, we'll take a look at that. Obviously water and electric don't work together.
You know, at one point, did people used to do aluminum wiring?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff makes me nervous.
Yeah.
You know, and when you think about it, when I was a kid, you know, it wasn't breakers, it was fuses.
Right.
You know, people in those days were taking pennies and putting them behind.
Yeah, exactly.
God forbid.
Yeah. So fuses, yeah, also a thing that we're trying to move away from as well. Yeah.
You know, it's when you start thinking, I imagine summer is a big AC time, but when should people start thinking about their furnace? Because I imagine, you know, people in fall try their furnace, it doesn't work, you're getting all these calls at the same time. Can you go in and check their furnace and air conditioning at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we try to prep the community before we even got into the summer season. We went out and just make sure we were doing our preventative maintenance checks before the summer. But, you know, as you know, I think we can all agree the heat is definitely here for us now in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And so as we're out checking ACs, if they want to have their furnace checked out as well, we can absolutely offer that. And it's good. That's good practice to make sure you know, you don't want to turn your furnace on the first time and you have, you know, and we're down in the 30s and 40s and you find out your furnace isn't working. You know, that's.
And unfortunately, that can happen in Buffalo in August. No, maybe not in August.
Hopefully not.
But what about, you know, air conditioning units? You know, and you see these on homes, you know, the air conditioners, box-like things sitting outside. Should, sometimes you see leaves or grass, if they're, you know, cutting the lawn nearby, are caked up alongside of that. Can that affect the performance?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like, you know, if you're trying to breathe through a straw, it'll just almost suffocate the system a little bit. And that's what we'll do when we come out and do our AC tune-ups. We'll make sure that all the leaves gathered up there are blown away. We'll make sure we give it a good wash to make sure that your condenser is up and running.
What about this? We had a situation, you know, and I was talking to a friend about this not too long ago, where there was a power outage. Mm-hmm. You know, power goes down, comes back up, power goes down again, comes back up, you know, 2 or 3 times. And all of a sudden, when the power comes up again, the air conditioner doesn't work. Is that a time to call you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, our technicians are trained. We train twice a week. On technical skills and soft skills. For technical training, you know, we want to make sure we're ahead of the industry. You know, it's always changing, but in order to relay all that those technicalities to the customer, we also train on soft skills. So we want to make sure that our technicians can elaborate on some of these more complex problems in a way that the customers can understand. So absolutely, get us out there. Just make sure that your AC is running and we don't run into anything.
Now, we know that you do plumbing, we do electrical, you do AC, you do heating, but you also do a lot in the community. What kind of community things are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. We recently have created a couple sponsorships with some big names in the area, with American Cancer Society, with Roswell Park, Buffalo Zoo, and the Buffalo Marathon. And really, like, our driving force here is just to show up to the moments that matter for the community. You know, it really hit home for some of our technicians and some of the employees at Reimer that, you know, they've either personally been affected or, you know, have family members affected by breast cancer. And so when we partnered with American Cancer Society, you know, it really made a difference internally and then externally as well in the community. We will, you know, partner with American Cancer Society. We'll go out and do some furnace or AC giveaways to breast cancer survivors or thrivers as well.
Well, thank you very much for what you do in the community. We really do appreciate that. Nathan Vitacco, Vice President of Operations for Reimer Home Services. For more information and answers to your questions, contact Reimer Home Services by calling 716-302-HORN or go to callreimer.com. Sponsorship and promotional consideration for the preceding segment was provided by Reimer Home Services, and you can join me weekday mornings 7 to 9 a.m. on the Big WECK.
Thanks for watching this edition of the Big WECK Presents Buffalo on the Rise. For information on this and other shows, go to our website, bigweck.com, and find out how you can participate on the program if you're a hometown business. I'm Joe Chili. Thanks for watching and listening to the Big WECK, Buffalo's oldie station.
The Big WECK Presents Buffalo on the Rise was sponsored by Dr. Kaplansky Dental Implants. Get new permanent teeth in 24 hours with our exclusive Teeth Now process.